Salida, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jim and welcome to the Sounds German review of the new Solar Fake album, You Win, Who Cares? Solar Fake is an electro or synth-pop side project by Sven Friedrich, a Berlin-based musician who is probably best known for being the voice of the band Zeraphine. However, Zeraphine was more in the rock area in terms of music, and another key difference is that Solar Fake is just a duo. Sven Friedrich once again delivers the vocals, while André Feller plays the keyboard. However, the creative process is completely in Friedrich's hands here. So with only a keyboard, basically a one-instrument project here, it's pretty obvious where the focus of the music lies. And I feel that Friedrich tried to get everything he could out of this one instrument. You will find it playing piano-like notes like in the beginning of the opening track Sick of You, which then slowly go over into a more synthetic style. You get heavy, dark, pumping beats, slow-paced droning noises, and even in one instance something that sounds like weirdly electronic distorted horns in the track Papillon. Friedrich's vocals of course accompany the music in every track. Most of the time he uses clean vocals with a somewhat stoic delivery, but sometimes goes into a bit more aggressive registers with some distortion added over the vocals, like in the tracks I Don't Fight Back or Just Like This. However, this is applied to various degrees, with Just Like This, for example, being somewhat mild on the distortion, even though the composition would demand a far more aggressive, rough mix here, I feel. But no matter if compositions or vocals, the album honestly could never fully win me over. Starting with the compositions, I'm sure hardcore electro fans will find a lot to like in here, and possibly also a lot more than I did in itself, you know? You will occasionally find these super unusual sounds like in the aforementioned track Papillon, but for the most part this album just delivers nothing that feels fresh or new or really that interesting. Most of the tracks hit the same point in terms of atmosphere and aesthetic. It just feels incredibly iterative, in parts to the point of redundancy. And if you use only one instrument, you simply have to find innovative ways to use it or just be a genius when it comes to compositions, otherwise it will become stale. Especially if you have an album that is almost 1 full hour of playtime if you exclude the remixes. But instead it just feels like Friedrich had just one idea and settled for it and repeated it over and over and over again. And Solar Fake proved they can pull it off just on this very album, not only with Papillon, but also with the slow-paced, melancholic What If There's Nothing that comes up with spaced-out drums and a rustling, slightly droning melody. But there are simply not enough really interesting moments on this album, given most of the tracks this feeling of an old story being retold for the 100th time. I was also pretty disappointed by Friedrich's vocals here on this disc. Of course I know that the genre dictates a somewhat stoic performance, but when I think back to Zeraphine, I remember Friedrich having the stoicness in his voice there too, but there were layers of emotion underneath it that gave these songs an outstanding feeling. Thinking of songs like Out of the Void, and this whole album here just pales in comparison. Because Sven Friedrich has a pretty outstanding voice if he puts the work in, it just feels like he didn't here. I guess the lyrics didn't really help either, with many of the tracks feeling like it's a song from the perspective of someone who is super salty over a recent breakup. Thankfully, Solar Fake refrains from going full cliché here, but some lines I simply could not take seriously, like the phrase, "I don't miss you at all, I'll just hang up if you call," from A Bullet Left for You, or like for example pretty much all of the closing track Fuck You, which feels like Friedrich finally acknowledged it all and decided to simply roll with it. Because most of the album comes off like it takes itself seriously, like it wants to really create this gloomy, dark atmosphere, but instead you get this slightly bitchiness about other people again and again, while at the same time it's all kept so vague that every 15-year-old would feel this album totally gets him, man, this album totally gets it, because the lyrics can be applied to so many situations. And I really wanted to get pulled into this atmosphere, but it just felt so incredibly par for the course by the end of it. There is a bunch of remixes by various artists on here, and to be honest, all of those remixes are more interesting versions of their original counterpart. Here you find spacey, dreamy melody arcs, fingers snapping instead of a hard beat or drums, a second set of vocals layered beneath the original, or a conversion that basically turns the song into a trance version. I guess it's a bit unfair to say this because none of these remixes could exist without their original, but these 6 remixes are really cool, worthwhile conversions, and I enjoyed them all far more than the original tracks. So, as a conclusion, that You Win, Who Cares has potential buried inside of it can't be denied. The sad thing is that it needed remixes to show this. This does not feel like an album by an experienced artist. It's monotonous, sometimes flat out boring. Friedrich certainly doesn't deliver his best vocal performance either, and while there are interesting ideas to be found here, they are few and far between. Worst of all, as I said before, most of the interesting ideas can be found in the remixes, which are all surprisingly well done. This album is certainly not shit, it's not a disaster, but it's also not really enticing or exciting for the most part of its almost 90 minutes of playtime. So, I hope you enjoyed this review, and if you did, leave a like for the video or just subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and want more reviews for bands and artists you have probably never heard of before. If you have listened to the album, let me know with a comment what you thought about it, and if you want to check it out now, you can find all the relevant links in the description below. You can also find my social media accounts linked there. If you want to check out some random music, I do post at least one music video per day there. Thank you very much for watching, I hope to see you again next time. Have a nice day, Salida.